Okay, another category is that children say things that aren't true. When does, yeah, apparently so do adults, yeah. When do you hear kids start to tell stories and tell little lies? 4. 4-year-olds are amazing storytellers. They can tell you something and reel you in and be so good at telling a story. And this is completely normal for a 4-year-old to do that. And they also start to steal things at this age too, which can be kind of funny because they know they want something and they don't understand the concept of stealing or the concept of a lie for that matter. I had a frantic phone call one day from a woman who had either a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And she was so concerned that we had to have this phone conversation immediately. And what had happened is she was making chocolate chip cookies with her 4-year-old daughter, and she left the room to go and wash her hands. And when she came back, there were fewer chocolate chips. And she made the mistake of asking her 4-year-old, "Did you take some of the chocolate chips?" And of course the 4-year-old said no, with chocolate all over her face. And then Mom, of course, said, "Well, I know you did. You've got chocolate on your face." And so what Mom did is she asked a question that invites a lie. And so because we know it's pretty typical for kids to give you the right answer, we don't want to ask a question that invites a lie, especially when you've got teenagers. And that this is pretty typical for kids to do. Now, kids who get stuck in lying are often kids who don't want to disappoint their parents, so they've gotten into that kind of obedience model where they want to please you, or kids who are afraid of being on the receiving end of punishment. And so it takes until approximately the age of 8 to be able to even understand the concept of a lie. And, you know, that's why we have the story of the boy who cried wolf, just to try to explain it. Now, a lot of teenagers will go through a period of lying, and parents often ask me how they can trust their teen when all their teen does is lie. And parents don't usually like my answer, but my answer is stop asking so many questions. You don't have to know everything they're doing at a certain age. And a lot of times teens will lie just to protect their autonomy. Yeah, let's take a look at a skit on this.
Hello? Oh, yes, Mr. Smith. Oh, really? Huh. She wasn't in math class today. Well, thank you for letting me know. I'll follow up with Tamara. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Mom. How's it going?
Thanks, Mom. Good. How are you?
Good. Great. Yeah.
How was your day?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so amazing. Yeah.
Math. Did you math today?
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. So easy.
Yeah, it was a good class.
Yes.
You learned a lot in it?
All the time, Mom. All the time. Yeah. I guess you're just wanting to know what I did in math.
Sure. Why don't you tell me what you did today in math?
Well, I can show you what I did if you want to know. It's right here somewhere. I worked on it really hard today. It's like imaginary numbers and
Imaginary, yes. I think the only thing that's imaginary here is that you were at math class today. Yes, I think you're a liar. Mr. Smith has already called and said you were not in math.
What? Oh, you're talking about math class. Now I hear you. I wasn't hearing you what you were saying. I didn't get it. The craziest thing happened in math class
Tell me
today.
about it.
Right before I got there, I got bit from this huge spider. It was awful, Mom.
Yeah. Sure.
Come on.
Nice.
So, don't call your kid a liar. You don't want to paint them with that brush. Just make it easier for them to be honest with you. So I'm glad you asked. Well, first of all, not being over-controlling. Because if you're over-controlling, they will not share their personal thoughts, independent thoughts with you. They'll become more secretive, even just in terms of what they're actually thinking about, let alone doing. So with over-control, kids, go under the radar because they know that you're going to disapprove of what they're doing anyway. And quite often, if we use a lot of punishment, It's often better to tell a lie and take a chance because you're probably going to get punished for whatever it is that you did anyway. You know, so that makes it, it makes it hard to be honest when you've got over control. And another boundary buster that invites lying and stealing, actually, and I talked about this last night in the other course, is intrusiveness. So when we look at boundary busters in parenting, we look at over control, again, which is expecting obedience, you know, not giving kids enough room, all the things that we've talked about with kid issues. We look at overprotection. So if a parent is overprotective, this is a parent who doesn't let a child take normal risks, which seems to be getting harder and harder these days for society to let our kids take normal risks. But if we're overprotecting, our kids are going to have to go out there and defy us just so that they can lead a normal life and not buy into the parents' fear. Intrusiveness is another form of parenting that causes a lot of problems. Intrusiveness is when we get too involved with our kids' activities. We interfere, and so it can start when kids are very young. Intrusiveness is when we might be picking at their bodies, or it's intrusive to force a child to hug someone that they don't know, you know, hug Aunt Martha who they've just met. That's a form of intrusiveness.